in the heart of the dense, verdant jungle, where the towering trees spread their thick canopies over the forest floor, lived Cobber, a mighty gorilla. His dark, powerful frame was a stark contrast to the delicate foliage around him. Cobber had lived alone in the jungle for many years, his only company being the rustling leaves, the occasional calls of distant animals, and the soft, rhythmic sounds of the wind blowing through the trees. His massive body, built for strength and endurance, had earned him respect from the jungle's many creatures. But Cobber preferred the quiet solitude of his own company. He was content to be one with the jungle, watching over it and protecting it from any harm that might threaten its delicate balance. Despite his formidable presence, Cobber had a heart that was gentle and kind. He was not one to seek conflict or violence. Instead, he had come to understand the beauty of harmony in the natural world. His immense strength, which could have been used to dominate, was instead employed in protecting the vulnerable, whether they were the smallest insects or the larger creatures of the forest. His was a life of peaceful existence, built on mutual respect for all that lived in the jungle. But one day, everything changed. It was the height of the rainy season, and the forest was alive with the sound of raindrops hitting the leaves and the deep, echoing calls of birds seeking shelter. The jungle was slick with water, and the earth beneath Cobber's feet was soft and yielding. As he made his way through the dense underbrush, his keen senses, always alert to the slightest disturbance, caught something unusual, an unfamiliar sound. A soft whimper, barely audible over the pounding rain, reached Cobber's ears. His eyes narrowed as he turned his head, trying to locate the source of the sound. It was not the usual chatter of the forest. It was a cry of distress, a sound filled with fear and pain. Cobber's heart stirred with concern. He moved silently, using his massive arms to push aside the thick vines and bushes, until the source of the sound came into view. There, nestled among the wet grass, was a small lion cub. It was trembling, its golden fur matted with rainwater and dirt, and its large, sorrowful eyes were wide with terror. The cub was alone, its tiny body quivering in fear, its sides rising and falling with shallow breaths. Cobber could see that the cub was injured, its leg was bleeding, and it was unable to stand. The little creature looked so fragile and vulnerable, far from the fearsome predator it was destined to become. Cobber stood still for a moment, studying the lion cub. His first instinct was to approach cautiously. Despite the lion's reputation as a predator, Cobber had long known that every creature had a role to play in the great web of life. He had also learned that the jungle was not always what it seemed. He had seen prey and predator alike suffer in the harsh world of survival. And he knew that sometimes, even the fiercest creatures needed protection. His large heart swelled with compassion for the helpless cub, and without a second thought, Cobber knelt down beside it. He gently reached out with one of his massive hands, his fingers careful not to cause any more harm. The lion cub flinched at first, but then, sensing the kindness in Cobber's touch, it allowed him to approach. Cobber's voice, deep and calm, rumbled through the air as he spoke softly to the cub. "You're safe now. he murmured, his voice gentle yet firm. "I won't let anything hurt you." Cobber knew that he had to act quickly. The cub's wound was deep, and the rainwater was making it worse. Without hesitation, he scooped the cub into his strong arms, cradling it carefully against his chest. The lion cub, too weak to protest, let out a soft, pitiful mew as it nuzzled into Cobber's warm fur. The gorilla's heart tightened, but he did not hesitate. He had made a decision. He would protect this creature, no matter what. Cobber's mind raced as he made his way through the jungle, his powerful legs moving swiftly and steadily. The rain, while still heavy, seemed to part for him as he pushed forward, determined to find shelter for the cub. His eyes scanned the surrounding forest, looking for any sign of danger or, perhaps, the cub's mother. He knew that lions were territorial and that the cub's mother would not be far. But he also knew that the jungle could be a dangerous place, especially for a helpless creature like this one. The journey to find shelter was long, and the jungle seemed to grow darker with each step. Cobber finally found a large, hollowed-out tree, its thick roots forming a natural shelter from the rain. The massive gorilla knelt down and gently laid the cub on the soft ground inside the tree, its tiny body still trembling. Cobber took a moment to check the wound on the cub's leg. It was not life-threatening, but it was deep enough that it needed to be treated. The gorilla used his strong fingers to pull leaves from nearby plants, expertly wrapping them around the wound to stop the bleeding. Once the cub was settled, Cobber sat back, keeping a vigilant watch over the tiny creature. His sharp eyes scanned the jungle, looking for any sign of danger. He knew that the cub's mother might be searching for it, but he also knew that the jungle was full of predators that would not hesitate to take advantage of a situation like this. Cobber's resolve hardened. He would not let anyone harm this little one. Hours passed, and the rain began to subside. The storm had passed, but the jungle was still filled with an eerie quiet, as if the storm itself was holding its breath. The cub's breathing had slowed, and Cobber could tell that it was starting to relax. His protective instincts were in full force now. He remained by the cub's side, watching over it as if it were his own. Suddenly, a movement in the underbrush caught Cobber's attention. His body tensed, every muscle prepared for action. Out of the shadows emerged a lioness, her golden eyes scanning the area with fierce determination. She was large, powerful, and, no doubt, a skilled hunter. The lioness's eyes locked onto Cobber, and for a moment, the two creatures stood in silence, staring at one another. The tension in the air was thick. Cobber knew that the lioness would not hesitate to fight if she thought he posed a threat to her cub. He took a slow, measured breath, his posture calm but ready. He had no intention of fighting her, but he would not back down. The cub had become his responsibility, and he would do whatever it took to protect it. To Cobber's surprise, the lioness did not attack. Instead, she took a few cautious steps forward, her eyes never leaving Cobber's. The gorilla remained still, his eyes softening as he slowly reached toward the cub. The lioness's gaze shifted to the small creature lying on the ground. She moved closer, her steps slow and tentative. And then, In an unexpected gesture, she lowered her head and nuzzled the cub gently. The cub stirred, recognizing the scent of its mother, and let out a soft, relieved sound. Cobber remained motionless, watching with a quiet respect as the lioness tended to her cub. It was clear to him now that the cub had been lost in the storm, separated from its mother in the chaos. The lioness's eyes, though fierce, softened as she looked back at Cobber. She stepped forward, her gaze no longer hostile but rather filled with a sense of gratitude and understanding. Without a word, the lioness nodded toward Cobber and slowly, carefully, picked up her cub by the scruff of its neck. She turned and began to move away, her cub safe in her jaws. Cobber watched them go, his heart still racing from the encounter. But a sense of relief washed over him. He had done what was right. He had protected the cub. And now, he had returned it to its mother. As the lioness and her cub disappeared into the jungle, Cobber let out a quiet breath. He remained standing for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the path they had taken. The jungle had returned to its peaceful rhythm, and the danger had passed. Cobber felt a deep sense of satisfaction in his heart. He had once again ensured that the balance of the jungle was preserved. From that day forward, Cobber knew that no matter how fierce or dangerous the creatures of the jungle might be, he would always stand up for those who needed help. His strength was not for domination, it was for protection. The true measure of strength, he had learned, lay not in the ability to overpower, but in the willingness to help, to protect, and to care. In that moment, Cobber had discovered the true heart of the jungle, and his place within it. The days after the storm were long, the sky clearing only to reveal the damp, quiet expanse of the jungle. But for Cobber, the mighty gorilla, there was something deeper pulling at him, a sense of responsibility. A quiet promise made to the young lion cub he had saved. Cobber had seen the fear and pain in the cub's eyes. But he had also seen something else: vulnerability, innocence, and the need for protection. The cub, though lost and fragile, had a strength inside it that Cobber recognized, and he had made a decision to help it, no matter the cost. The cub was still weak from the injury to its leg, but Cobber had carefully tended to it, wrapping the wound with jungle herbs and leaves, doing everything he could to ensure that the cub would heal. Over the days that followed, Cobber had kept the cub by his side, watching over it as it rested and slowly recovered. Despite the constant rain, the jungle was alive with a renewed sense of energy. Cobber knew that it was time to begin the next part of their journey, the journey to safety. To a place where the cub could learn to trust again and grow strong enough to return to its life in the wild. Cobber had no illusions about what lay ahead. The jungle was unpredictable, full of dangers, predators, sudden storms, and thick brush that could make travel difficult. But Cobber was determined. He had chosen to protect the cub, and nothing would deter him from his task. He would teach it how to survive, how to heal, and most importantly, how to trust. As the cub's wounds began to heal, Cobber stood up and stretched his muscular arms. His dark eyes looked down at the cub, which was now more alert, its golden fur beginning to dry and fluff up as the rain stopped. It was still tentative around Cobber, occasionally flinching when the gorilla moved too suddenly. The cub's wide, fearful eyes were constantly watching him, not yet fully understanding the protection he offered. "Ready to go, little one?" Cobber's deep voice rumbled softly. The cub didn't respond but gave a wary glance at the towering gorilla. The tension in its small body told Cobber everything he needed to know. It was scared. The cub didn't yet understand why Cobber had helped it. Why a creature so different from itself had taken on the role of protector. Cobber crouched down to the cub's level, his large hands carefully reaching out toward it. "Don't be afraid," Cobber said quietly. "I'm not your enemy." The cub, still unsure, took a tentative step backward. It had been raised to see creatures like Cobber as dangerous, as a threat, yet, for reasons it didn't fully understand, it felt an inexplicable pull toward the gorilla. Cobber had saved it, yes, but that didn't erase the deep-rooted instincts of fear. The cub's mind was confused, torn between its natural instincts and the protective warmth Cobber offered. But Cobber's eyes were steady, filled with patience. He could feel the cub's apprehension, the fear that had not yet been shed. But he knew that in time, the cub would come to understand that Cobber was not a threat, but a friend. He extended his hand slowly, offering it in peace, and this time, the cub didn't pull away. It simply watched, its golden eyes searching Cobber's face, trying to understand what he was offering. Cobber nodded gently. "I'll be here, you don't need to be afraid." Slowly, cautiously, the cub inched closer, its little body still trembling. But not as much. It nuzzled Cobber's hand for a moment, sensing the warmth of his touch, the calm that emanated from him. It was a small gesture, but it was the first step in their journey together. Together, they began to move through the jungle, with Cobber leading the way and the cub trailing behind. The path was difficult, filled with thick vines and wet underbrush. But Cobber moved through it with ease, his powerful limbs cutting through the jungle's dense growth. The cub, however, was still weak and unsure, stumbling occasionally and falling behind. At one point, the cub's injured leg buckled beneath it, and it fell, letting out a small whimper. Without hesitation, Cobber turned, his eyes soft with concern. He moved quickly toward the cub, gently lifting it into his arms and cradling it close to his chest. "Rest for now," Cobber murmured, his deep voice soothing. "You're still weak, but you'll get stronger." The cub, now nestled in Cobber's arms, looked up at the gorilla. Its fearful gaze was slowly changing, its eyes less filled with apprehension and more with curiosity. Cobber's presence was reassuring, steady. He was not rushing the cub, not pushing it beyond what it could handle. The trust was slowly beginning to build between them, like a delicate thread weaving its way through the jungle, connecting their hearts. As the journey continued, Cobber shared everything he knew about the jungle, its hidden dangers and its many wonders. He taught the cub how to spot signs of danger, how to track prey, and how to find food. The cub, though small and inexperienced, began to listen, watching Cobber closely as the gorilla moved through the jungle with grace and authority. One afternoon, as they reached a riverbank, Cobber showed the cub how to fish. He dipped his massive hand into the water, his fingers moving swiftly to snatch up a fish. The cub watched in awe as Cobber held the wriggling fish, before tossing it toward the cub. The cub hesitated, its eyes fixed on the fish, unsure of how to approach it. But Cobber, ever patient, guided it. He gently nudged the cub forward, encouraging it to take the fish. "Try it," Cobber said softly. "You can do it." The cub took a cautious step toward the fish and, with Cobber's guidance, managed to grab it. The cub's eyes widened in surprise, and for the first time, a glimmer of pride shone through the fear. "I did it!" the cub exclaimed, its voice filled with excitement. Cobber smiled, the corners of his lips twitching upward. "Yes, you did. You're getting stronger." It was moments like these that slowly erased the cub's fears. Each lesson, each act of kindness, brought them closer. The cub's growing trust in Cobber was evident. It no longer flinched when Cobber moved, and it began to follow him more willingly. They had formed an unspoken bond, a connection that transcended their differences. The cub was no longer just an animal to Cobber. It had become a companion, a friend. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, they encountered other animals, some curious, some cautious, but all wary of Cobber, the mighty gorilla. Yet, when they saw the bond between the gorilla and the lion cub, their wariness melted into respect. The jungle, with all its challenges and dangers, began to seem less like a place of fear and more like a community. Even predators like the jaguars and wildcats seemed to give them space. Sensing that Cobber was a force to be reckoned with, but also that he was not to be feared. It was on a particularly quiet evening, as the jungle settled into a peaceful hush, that Cobber noticed something change in the cub. They were resting under the protective shelter of a massive tree, its roots twisting and sprawling in all directions. The cub was curled up next to Cobber, its head resting against his side. When it looked up at him, its eyes no longer filled with fear, but with understanding. "You're my friend, aren't you?" the cub asked quietly, its voice small but sincere. Cobber looked down at the cub, his deep eyes warm. He nodded, his large hand gently resting on the cub's back. "Yes, little one, I'm your friend, and I'll always be here to protect you." The cub's eyes softened as it nuzzled closer to Cobber, a quiet bond of affection and trust forming between them. It was in that moment that Cobber knew their journey had come full circle. What had started as a reluctant act of protection had transformed into a lifelong friendship. The cub, once so afraid, had learned that Cobber was not an enemy, but a protector, a companion, and a friend. And Cobber, in return, had learned that strength was not just in his mighty muscles, but in his capacity for compassion. It was the love and protection he gave freely that made him truly strong. In the heart of the jungle, under the canopy of ancient trees, Cobber and the lion cub stood together, two beings from different worlds, but bound by a bond stronger than anything they had ever known. Cobber and the lion cub had been traveling together for weeks, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. What had begun as an act of mercy, Cobber rescuing a frightened, injured cub from the clutches of the storm, had transformed into something deeper, a friendship. A shared journey through the heart of the jungle. The cub, once afraid of the mighty gorilla, had come to trust him. And in turn, Cobber had learned to protect and care for the little one as though it were his own. But the jungle, with all its beauty, was never without danger, and as they ventured deeper into unfamiliar lands, the greatest test of their bond was yet to come. It was early one morning when Cobber and the cub found themselves in a vast, open plain, where the grass waved like the ocean in the wind. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the distant sound of the river. It was a peaceful place, a quiet respite in their journey. But Cobber knew better than to let his guard down. The jungle was full of surprises. And not all of them were kind. The cub had been frolicking in the grass, its small form darting playfully between the tall stalks. When Cobber heard it, the unmistakable sound of low growls echoing through the air. Cobber's ears twitched, his eyes narrowing. Something was wrong. The cub froze, its ears twitching as it turned toward Cobber, its eyes wide with confusion. "What's that sound?" it asked, its voice small and unsure. Cobber's gaze shifted to the horizon, where the grass swayed and rippled. He could see shapes moving in the distance, shadows in the tall grass. And then, he saw them. A pride of lions was emerging from the cover of the plain, their golden coats gleaming in the morning light. Their eyes locked onto Cobber and the cub. The pride was large, at least 10 strong, and they moved as one. Their eyes focused on the small lion cub at Cobber's side. Cobber's heart sank as he realized the danger they were in. The lions, fierce and territorial, had no love for outsiders, and even less for a gorilla who dared to protect one of their own. The leader of the pride, a massive lion with a thick, golden mane, stepped forward. His eyes were filled with suspicion and fury as he growled low in his throat. The other lions flanked him, their posture tense, ready for a fight. "Release the cub," the lion growled, his voice deep and filled with authority. "It belongs to us. It is one of ours. And you have no right to claim it." Cobber stood his ground, his massive form towering over the cub as he placed himself protectively in front of it. He had always known that this moment might come, that the lions would one day find out about the cub and try to take it back. But he would not allow him to take it without a fight. The cub had become his responsibility, and he would not abandon it. "I am not your enemy," Cobber's deep voice rumbled. "This cub is not yours to claim. It was lost in the storm, and I protected it. I will not allow you to harm it." The leader of the pride let out a low, rumbling growl, his eyes flashing with anger. "You dare stand in our way?" he snarled. "This cub belongs to us. You, gorilla, are not welcome here. Leave now, or face the consequences." Cobber's muscles tensed, his massive arms ready for action. The pride of lions was a formidable force. But Cobber was strong, and his heart was full of resolve. He had fought many battles in the jungle, but this one felt different. It was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight to protect the cub. A fight for a bond that had been forged in trust and kindness. "I will not leave," Cobber said, his voice unwavering. "I will protect this cub with my life." The lion's growls grew louder. Their teeth bared as they circled Cobber and the cub. The tension in the air was thick, the scent of fear and aggression filling the space between them. Cobber's heart pounded in his chest as he prepared for the worst. He could feel the cub trembling behind him, its small body pressing against his leg. Cobber turned slightly, offering a soft, reassuring glance. The cub looked up at him, its golden eyes filled with fear, but also with trust. "I'm not afraid," the cub whispered, its voice small but strong. Cobber smiled down at it, his expression filled with determination. "You don't have to be. I'm here." In a flash, the leader of the pride lunged, his powerful body moving with speed and precision. Cobber reacted just as quickly, sidestepping the lion's attack and grabbing it by the scruff of its neck, using his incredible strength to throw it off balance. The lion roared in fury, but Cobber was relentless. He knew that if he allowed the pride to overwhelm him, the cub would be lost. The battle raged on, each lion attacking in turn, their sharp claws swiping at Cobber's thick fur, their powerful jaws snapping. Cobber fought back with all his might, using his massive fists and powerful arms to knock the lions away. But the numbers were against him, and the pride was relentless. Every time Cobber sent one lion flying, two more took its place. Cobber felt the sting of claws raking across his side, felt the sharp bite of teeth sinking into his arm. Blood dripped from his wounds, and the pain surged through him. But he did not stop. He could hear the cub's fearful cries, and that sound drove him forward. He could not fail. The cub, though small and frightened, had been watching Cobber's fight, its eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. It could see the strength in Cobber, and it could feel the deep, unwavering resolve in his heart. Despite its fear, the cub knew it had to do something. It could not let Cobber fight alone. With a deep breath, the cub summoned all the courage it could muster and darted toward the lions. "Stop!" the cub cried, its voice high and sharp, piercing the chaos of the battle. "This is not the way. Cobber is my friend." The pride paused for a moment, startled by the cub's sudden declaration. The leader of the pride, still furious, growled low, but the cub's words seemed to have some effect. The lions, who had been so determined to fight, now hesitated, their eyes shifting between the cub and Cobber. The cub, still trembling but determined, stepped forward. "Cobber saved me. He protected me when I was hurt. And he has never done anything wrong. Please, don't hurt him." The leader of the pride's growl softened, though his eyes were still filled with anger. "You are too young to understand," he said, his voice low. "This gorilla is not one of us. He is not family. He does not belong." The cub, despite its small size, stood tall, its eyes filled with a bravery that belied its years. "He is my family," the cub said, its voice trembling but strong. "He is the one who has protected me. Please, don't hurt him." The pride's leader was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the cub. He could see the sincerity in the cub's eyes, the bond that had formed between the two. Slowly, The other lions began to lower their heads, their growls fading as they sensed the shift in their leader's attitude. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the leader of the pride spoke. His voice softer now. "Very well," he said, his tone filled with reluctant respect. "You are no longer a cub of the pride. But you are not lost. You have found your protector." Cobber, though injured and bloodied, stood tall, his chest heaving with exhaustion. He looked down at the cub, a mixture of relief and pride in his heart. The cub had shown bravery beyond its years, and it had reminded the lions of something they had forgotten. Sometimes strength was not in numbers, but in the bonds we choose. The leader of the pride gave a final, reluctant nod. "Go," he said, his voice soft. "But remember, we are always watching." With that, the lions turned and disappeared into the tall grass, their growls fading into the distance. Cobber lowered his guard, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The battle was over, and the cub was safe. But it had come at a cost. Cobber's body was covered in scratches and bruises, his side throbbing where the lion had bitten him. The cub, still trembling but now full of admiration for Cobber, approached him. "You're hurt," it said softly, its voice filled with concern. Cobber smiled faintly. "Despite the pain, it's nothing. I'm just glad you're safe." The cub nuzzled against Cobber's leg, its golden fur warm against his. "Thank you. You protected me. I'll always remember that." Cobber looked down at the cub, his heart full of gratitude. "I will always protect you. That's what friends do." Together, they stood in the quiet aftermath of the battle, the jungle now calm once more. Cobber had fought not for dominance, but for love, for loyalty, and for the unbreakable bond that had formed between them. And in that moment, both Cobber and the cub knew that their friendship would never be broken. No matter what dangers the jungle might throw their way. The jungle had been calm for days, the tension from the encounter with the pride of lions fading into the background as the sun climbed higher each day. Cobber and the lion cub had continued their journey together, moving through the thick underbrush, climbing rocky hills, and crossing the vast plains. Though the cub had recovered from its injuries, a new sense of wariness lingered in its eyes. It had seen the fierce protectiveness Cobber had shown, and it had felt the deep bond forming between them. But the cub was also torn between the pull of its natural kin, the pride, and the strong, silent loyalty Cobber had shown in their shared struggle. Cobber, for his part, continued to protect the cub, not out of obligation, but because he had come to care for it deeply. The bond between them had grown beyond simple protection. It was a quiet understanding, one that spoke of loyalty, trust, and friendship, things that transcended species, transcended the natural order of predator and prey. Cobber had never imagined his life would take such a turn, that he would find himself bound to a lion cub, someone who, in another life, could have been his enemy. But this was not just any lion cub. This was a cub who had seen Cobber as a savior, a protector, and perhaps most importantly, as a friend. One evening, as they sat beneath the protective shade of a great tree, the cub turned to Cobber with a solemn expression. The evening light, warm and golden, bathed the landscape, casting long shadows across the ground. The cub looked up at Cobber, its golden eyes reflecting a quiet gratitude. "I've been thinking," the cub said softly, its voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've been thinking about going back to the Pride. They're my family, and I know they'll be looking for me." Cobber listened intently, his eyes soft but unwavering. He knew this day would come, the day when the cub would face the decision between returning to its pride or remaining with him. The path they had walked together had been one of safety and healing. But the pride was still a powerful force in the cub's life. Cobber could feel the tug of the cub's loyalty, a pull to return to its kind, to take its place among them. But as the cub looked at him, there was something in its eyes, a hesitation, a quiet doubt. The cub was not certain. It was clear that the decision was not easy, that the choice to leave Cobber, the one who had protected and cared for it, was a painful one. "I can't," the cub continued, its voice quieter now. "I can't just forget what you did for me. You saved my life. You fought the Pride for me. I can't go back and forget that. You're my friend." Cobber's heart swelled with emotion at the cub's words. He had never expected anything in return for his actions. His care for the cub had been a quiet, unspoken promise. But hearing the cub's gratitude, seeing the deep bond that had formed between them, moved Cobber more than he could express. The cub's golden eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I know I should go back. But I don't want to leave you. You've shown me what it means to protect someone, to care for them. You didn't have to do any of this. I don't understand why you did it. But I'm so grateful." Cobber's deep voice rumbled softly, his hands gently resting on the cub's small shoulders. "You are not just any cub. You are my friend, and I will always protect you. No matter what happens, I'll be here for you." For a moment, they simply sat in silence, the weight of the moment hanging between them. The cub leaned against Cobber, its small body trembling slightly, though not from fear. It was the trembling of something else, something deeper, a mixture of gratitude, love, and the understanding of a friendship that had blossomed against the odds. And then, as if in a final act of resolve, the cub stood up, looking directly into Cobber's eyes. "I don't want to go back to the Pride," it said firmly. "I want to stay with you." Cobber's heart skipped a beat, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something soft and warm inside him, a feeling of deep contentment. The decision the cub had made was not one he had expected. But it was the one that felt right. The jungle, for all its dangers and uncertainties, had brought him together, and now, the cub had chosen to stay with him, to remain by his side. Not out of obligation, but out of friendship and loyalty. "I'm honored," Cobber said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I will always be here. Little one, we are family now, in our own way." The cub stepped forward and nuzzled Cobber's side, its soft fur warm against his body. "Thank you, Cobber. You're the best friend I've ever had." Cobber's strong arms enveloped the cub in a gentle embrace, his large hands cradling the small creature like a precious treasure. "No matter what comes, we will face it together," Cobber said softly, "and nothing will ever change that." As they stood there, The jungle around them seemed to fall into a gentle stillness, as if it, too, recognized the bond they had formed. The sounds of birds in the distance, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the soft murmur of the river in the distance, everything felt harmonious, as if the entire world was at peace. The next morning, as the dawn broke and the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, the pride of lions appeared again. They had been watching from a distance, their eyes lingering on Cobber and the cub. The leader of the pride, who had once demanded the cub's return, now stood at the edge of the clearing, his gaze less filled with anger, more with curiosity and, perhaps, a sense of reluctant understanding. Cobber stood tall, his strong body poised between the cub and the pride. But this time, he did not feel the fear of battle. He felt something else, a quiet certainty that this time, things would be different. The leader of the pride stepped forward, his golden eyes searching Cobber's. He did not growl or show aggression. Instead, he spoke in a voice that held more weight than it ever had before. "You have protected what is ours," the lion said, his tone softer than before. "And in doing so, you have earned our respect. We may be different, but we are not blind. You have shown the cub what it means to care, to protect. Perhaps that is what it needed all along." Cobber, though surprised by the lion's words, remained calm. His heart still beat strongly in his chest. But it was no longer the heartbeat of battle. It was the heartbeat of something else, of understanding, of mutual respect. The cub stepped forward, its small form standing tall beside Cobber. "I choose to stay with Cobber," it said, its voice steady and filled with certainty. "I belong with him now." The leader of the pride gave a deep, rumbling sigh, as if coming to terms with a truth he had not wanted to accept. He looked at the cub, then at Cobber, and then back at the rest of the pride. Slowly, one by one, the other lions lowered their heads, as if acknowledging something that had been unspoken before. They were not enemies, not anymore. And with that, the pride began to retreat, moving back into the tall grasses, their powerful bodies fading into the distance. Cobber watched them go, his chest swelling with a quiet sense of triumph. Not because he had won the battle, but because he had earned something much more valuable: the respect of the pride and the unwavering trust of the cub. From that day forward, the relationship between Cobber and the cub deepened. It was not a friendship born from convenience or necessity, but from a mutual respect, understanding, and love. They had crossed paths at a moment when their worlds were far apart. But through their shared journey, they had formed a bond that could never be broken. And as they stood together, side by side, watching the sun set over the jungle, Cobber knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as friends, as family, and nothing in the world could ever take that away. In that moment, the jungle felt whole. It was a place where even the fiercest of creatures, even the most unlikely of friends, could find harmony and peace. The jungle was quiet now, the harsh sounds of battle and fear replaced by a peaceful serenity that had settled over the land. Cobber and the young lion cub had been through much together, their bond tested by dangers, sacrifice, and fierce loyalty. Yet, in the end, they had emerged victorious, not by defeating an enemy, but by transcending the natural barriers that had once divided them. The sun was setting over the jungle, casting a warm, golden light that bathed the landscape in a soft glow. Cobber and the cub were seated together by the riverbank, the water gently flowing past them, reflecting the fading light of the day. The air was still, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the trees and the distant calls of birds returning to their nests for the night. It was a tranquil moment, a quiet respite after the storms of the past. For Cobber, the journey had been one of unexpected discoveries. He had never imagined that he would become a protector of a lion cub, much less forge a bond so deep with a creature that had once been a potential enemy. But the jungle had a way of surprising him. It had shown him that strength wasn't just in physical power, it was in compassion, in the willingness to protect and care for others. The cub had taught him that no matter the species, no matter the differences, friendship could bloom in the unlikeliest of places. Beside him, the cub lay on the grass, its golden fur still glistening from the river, its eyes soft with contentment. It had grown stronger over the days, its body no longer trembling with fear. The wounds from its past, both physical and emotional, had healed, and in their place was a quiet strength. The cub had found peace, not just with Cobber, but with itself. "Do you think they're okay?" the cub asked, its voice soft but filled with a new sense of maturity. It was looking toward the distant horizon where the pride of lions had disappeared. "The pride, I mean," Cobber nodded slowly, his deep eyes scanning the vast expanse of jungle before them. "They'll be fine," he said, his voice steady. "They may have been angry, but they saw something in you. They saw the bond we have. And that is something they can understand. Even if it's difficult, they're part of the jungle. Just like us. In time, I think they'll accept that." The cub glanced up at Cobber, its golden eyes filled with questions. "Still unsure about the path ahead. Do you think we could ever be family?" Cobber smiled softly, a warmth radiating from his chest. "We already are," he said, his voice low and reassuring. "Family doesn't always come in the form you expect. It's not about blood, or what species you belong to. It's about loyalty, trust, and love. You and we've shown that. Haven't we?" The cub nodded, its heart full of understanding. The journey had not been easy, and there had been many moments of doubt. But now, sitting by the river, the cub knew that its place was not with the pride. It had found something far more precious with Cobber, a true companion. Someone who would stand by it no matter the odds. "We've been through a lot together, haven't we?" the cub mused. "I used to be so afraid. Afraid of you. Afraid of the pride. Afraid of everything." Cobber chuckled softly, his large frame shaking with the sound. "We all have fears," he said. "It's what you do with them that counts. You've learned how to face them. And so have I. We've both changed." The cub looked up at Cobber, its expression one of quiet admiration. "I used to think you were just a big, scary gorilla," it said, its voice filled with the innocence of youth. "But now, I see that you're not just big and strong. You're kind. You care. You saved my life, Cobber, and that's something I'll never forget." Cobber's heart swelled with emotion as he looked at the cub. "I would do it again. And again, if it meant keeping you safe," he said, his voice thick with sincerity. The two sat in companionable silence as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The stars beginning to twinkle in the vast expanse above them. The jungle, once a place of danger and uncertainty, had become their home, a place where they could both find peace and understanding. It had been a long road to get here. But now, as they sat together, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. Over time, Cobber and the cub had become something of a legend in the jungle, a symbol of friendship that defied the natural order. A testament to the power of love and loyalty. Animals of all kinds, predators and prey alike, had come to respect the unusual pair. Even the pride of lions, once so fiercely protective of their own, had begun to accept the bond between Cobber and the cub. It wasn't always easy for the jungle to reconcile the idea of a gorilla and a lion cub as friends. But as the seasons changed and the jungle moved forward, the creatures who had once seen him as threats began to understand the deeper truth. They were not enemies, they were allies, bound by a connection that no one could break. One evening, as Cobber and the cub were walking through the jungle, the leader of the pride appeared once more. This time, there was no hostility in his eyes, no challenge in his voice. He approached slowly, his large frame standing tall against the setting sun. Cobber stopped in his tracks, the cub standing beside him, both of them watching the lion with a calm curiosity. "You've changed the cub," the lion said, his voice deep and filled with a quiet respect. "It's not the same cub that left the pride. It's stronger now. I see it." Cobber nodded, his deep gaze unwavering. "The cub has grown. As we all do, the journey we take shapes us. It's not about where we come from, but where we choose to go. The cub has found its path. And so have I." The lion studied them for a moment, his gaze shifting between Cobber and the cub. Then, with a deep sigh, he nodded. "The jungle is full of dangers," he said softly, "but it is also full of opportunities. Perhaps there is something we can all learn from your bond. It's not always the strongest who survive, but the ones who protect each other. You've taught the cub that. And I respect that." With that, the lion turned and disappeared back into the jungle, his massive form fading into the shadows. Cobber and the cub stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of the leader's words sinking in. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a gesture of peace, that had been a long time coming. As the night settled over the jungle, Cobber and the cub stood side by side, looking up at the sky above them. The stars twinkled brightly, and the moon cast a soft glow over the landscape. For the first time, the jungle felt truly at peace. "We've made it, haven't we?" the cub said softly, its voice filled with a quiet wonder. Cobber nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Yes, little one, we've made it, together." And so, beneath the vast sky, Cobber and the cub continued their journey through the jungle, their bond stronger than ever. The path ahead was unknown. But one thing was certain: no matter what challenges they would face. They would face them together. The jungle, once a place of separation, now stood as a symbol of unity. The bond between Cobber and the cub was not just a friendship, it was a message to the world. A message that no matter the differences between species, no matter the boundaries that nature had set, love and loyalty could overcome them all. In the end, friendship was the true strength. And as they walked side by side, under the canopy of trees and the open sky, they knew that the world, vast and full of wonder, was a place where every creature, no matter how big, no matter how small, could help protect and care for one another. Their friendship was a light in the darkness, a reminder that peace was not just a dream, but a reality that could be achieved when we chose to stand together. The jungle, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight, had finally found its peace. And so had they.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.